You think cheaters always get away with it? Think again. I had this buddy, Mark, solid guy. Thought his wife was the same. Turns out, secrets ain't just for keeping. They're like time bombs waiting to blow your whole life sky high. You see, I fell for Mark's wife, Sarah. Yeah, I know, I'm the worst. One stolen kiss, and it was a race to see how far we could fall. The lies got bigger, the sneaking around got riskier. We were playing with fire, man, and let me tell you, we got burned. This ain't your average heartbreak story. This is about how one stupid decision wrecked families, shattered friendships, and turned my entire world into a damn war zone. You ready for this? It gets messy. The whole, your wife fancies you, thing was a punch in the gut. I mean, come on, Mark? Your best mate? Is this some kind of weird test? I tossed and turned that night, her face, Sarah's face, flashing through my mind. The next morning, I felt like I'd been run over. Should I tell my wife? Nah, that'd open a whole other can of worms. Best to just forget the whole damn thing. A couple of days pass, and I'm starting to think I imagined the whole conversation. But then there's a Facebook message waiting for me. It's her, Sarah. My stomach flips. Turns out, Mark wasn't messing around. Her messages are playful, flirty, bold. It's like she's the cat and I'm some poor mouse she's got cornered. I try to resist, but there's no denying it. The spark is lit. Soon, a couple of messages turns into late-night chats, the kind I haven't had since I was a lovesick teenager. I know this is dangerous territory, but the thrill of the forbidden, it's intoxicating. One Tuesday, I end up working late. Instead, I find myself at Mark and Sarah's place. He's out of town for the night. It's meant to be just a quick visit, the excuse about catching up with both of them. But as Sarah talks, her eyes glinting with that knowing spark, all my willpower crumbles. Before I know it, we're in a desperate clinch, the world outside shrinking away. That's when it starts. The sneaking around, the stolen moments, the constant lies. Every time I look at Mark, the guilt eats away at me. Am I really low enough to betray my oldest friend this way? But Sarah, she's somehow wormed her way into my head. The rush of it all masks the sinking feeling that this is a runaway train, and I'm tied to the tracks. I never realized grocery shopping could be so damn exhilarating. There I was, standing in the cereal aisle beside Sarah, our carts almost touching. Suddenly, finding the right kind of granola felt like a life or death situation. We're pretending this is some random run-in, but there's zero chance anyone would buy that. After the grocery store, there's the coffee shop detour. We sit at a corner table, knees brushing, the hum of the cafe fading into the background as she throws me a mischievous grin. The air between us is charged, and I'm desperately trying to play it cool while my insides are on fire. With her leaning in, all I can think about is Mark's trusting face and how easily I'm destroying it with every innocent-looking latte. The lies come easier than I ever thought they would. Oh, meeting ran late, traffic was hell, yeah, had to pull an extra shift. My wife doesn't doubt me, but I see a flicker of concern in her eyes. She senses something's off, but she can't pinpoint the exact reason. It's only a matter of time before suspicion cracks through. My phone has basically become a ticking time bomb. I've switched Sarah's name to something boring, set the ringtone to silent, and I jump at the slightest vibration. Each text from her requires a calculated response, not too eager, not too dismissive. It's all a carefully crafted illusion, and I'm the architect of my own deception. When Mark calls, my heart sinks. His voice is cheerful, oblivious to the fact that I'm sweating bullets. He talks about weekend plans, a double date, and I have to force myself to sound enthusiastic. The irony is suffocating. Later, Sarah texts something fiery, and all I can picture is Mark laughing, completely clueless to the betrayal I'm orchestrating behind his back. Maybe I'm a terrible person, because despite the guilt, the thrill of the chase still hasn't worn off. It's a sick game, and I'm already in way too deep. Sarah's apartment smells like jasmine and some other scent I can't place. Sin, maybe. That's the thing about this whole twisted mess, it's poisoned every part of me. I can't think straight, sleep straight. I'm a malfunctioning robot pretending to be a normal husband and dad. Every time I sneak out to see her, it's like playing Russian roulette. Checking over my shoulder in parking lots, glancing at my reflection in windows, praying I don't see someone I know. Paranoia's got its claws in me, whispering that at any second, the bottom's going to drop out. But then I'm with her, and the fear recedes. Her touch sends shockwaves through me, her laughter makes my pulse race. We're building our own little world, one stolen hour at a time. Except, I know it's a flimsy house of cards. It's perched on lies, and the slightest breeze could tear it all apart. My old phone sits on a dusty shelf. That's my real life phone calls from my kids, messages from work. My secret phone buzzes, and my heart leaps. It's Sarah, and every text is another nail in the coffin of my sanity. We get sloppy, lingering too long outside her building, letting a kiss stretch out in the driveway. Each reckless move ups the ante. Screw Mark, Sarah hisses, her fingers tangled in my hair. This is real. He doesn't deserve you. And for a dangerous second, I almost believe her. The night everything changes starts just like the others. I lie to my wife, some half-baked excuse about a project, and then I'm racing to Sarah. But there's a strange twist in my gut, a feeling I can't shake. It's not guilt, not fear. It's a sense of inevitability, like the trap has finally been sprung, and I'm the oblivious rat walking straight into it. My hands won't stop shaking. I'm parked outside this dingy motel, Sarah asleep beside me, and all I can think about is blowing up our sorry little escape. I should march straight home, tell my wife everything, maybe even show her the string of filthy texts. Beg for forgiveness, or at least punishment. Anything would be better than this limbo. But as the sun starts to rise, painting the motel room in a sickly pink, Sarah stirs. Her eyes lock with mine, heavy with sleep and a familiar hunger. Just like that, the resolve slips away, replaced with a sickening wave of desire and self-loathing. I'm hooked. Addicted to this twisted game, even though I know the only possible ending is devastation. Back home, the lies keep piling up. My wife gives me a concerned look, asks if I'm okay, and I deflect, muttering something about stress. Inside, I'm dying 1,000 deaths. Every time the phone rings, I practically leap out of my skin. What if it's Mark? Has he figured it out? Is some stranger calling my house with a blackmail scheme? It's amazing how quickly your mind can invent fresh new terrors when you're this deep in deceit. At dinner, I force myself to swallow down the bland chicken, all the while imagining the scene with Mark that's inevitable. Him standing there, broken-hearted and furious. He won't hit me, that's not his style. He'll just look at me with absolute contempt, the kind that burns worse than any punch ever could. That night, I dream of courtroom trials, of my children's tear-streaked faces. I wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. My life is a horror movie, and I'm the architect of my own destruction. Sarah calls. It's code now, business jargon, fake names about clients. But I can barely focus on her words. All I hear is that ticking clock in my head, counting down to the moment the bomb goes off. And the really messed up part? I'm not even sure I want to stop it. I don't recognize myself anymore. I see him in the mirror, this pale, haunted stranger, and I hate what he's become. But cutting ties with Sarah? It's not something I can even fathom. She's sunk her claws into me too deep. Every meeting makes her bolder. No more hushed whispers in dim corners. Now it's hand-holding across restaurant tables, the brazen way she slides into the passenger seat of my car. We're daring fate to strike us down, and part of me knows it's a matter of when, not if. The day it almost unravels is seared into my brain. We're at the supermarket, a risky move, but she insisted. As we turn down the coffee aisle, a familiar voice jolts me. It's Linda, my neighbor, chatting away. If she turns that corner. I yank Sarah away, my face burning. Let's go, I forgot something. Her eyes narrow in suspicion, but she follows, for now. My heart's pounding like it's going to burst from my chest for the rest of the day. If Linda saw even a glimpse, the rumors will spread like wildfire. Mark's misery ramps up a notch. He drops by my office, unloads about Sarah's moods, their fights. I sit there, the picture of concerned sympathy, while my soul squirms. It's torture I bring on myself. He needs a friend and confides in the man who's tearing his world apart. Sarah's not making this easier. There's a new possessiveness in her, a neediness that makes me uneasy. She calls too much, wants to know my every move. When I push back, a flash of something ugly crosses her face. You think I'd let you walk away? After everything? It was meant to sound playful, but my blood runs cold. Suddenly, it's not just about the affair, it's about her. What depths is she capable of? What will she do if I try to end this? My lies fall apart faster than I can spin them. Excuses for work crumble, my stories get jumbled. My wife's patience is wearing thin, her eyes searching mine for answers. It's like a car crash in slow motion, and there's nothing I can do to swerve out of the way. I just have to wait for the inevitable impact. The text was an accident. A stupid, drunken fumble late one night, meant for Sarah and somehow hitting Mark's number. Words I shouldn't even think, let alone type out, beamed straight to my best friend's phone. It took seconds to realize my mistake, but the damage was done. The next morning, I wake up to a voicemail from Mark. His voice is low, a dangerous calm. We need to talk. Come over now. My stomach lurches. If he read that text, my entire world is about to implode. Frantically, I come up with idiotic excuses for my wife, urgent work crisis, surprise call. She sees right through my lies. Her eyes, once filled with concern, are now hard with suspicion. On the drive over to Mark's, All I can think is this might be the last time I see them, my family, before everything falls apart. Sarah's not answering her phone. Useless. I need to control the damage, but my mind is a jumbled mess. Mark greets me at the door. No handshake, no forced smile. Just that grim set to his jaw. He ushers me into the living room, the same room where we've had countless beers, watched countless games. It feels foreign now. Cut the crap, he spits. What the hell's going on with you and Sarah? He holds up his phone, screen flashing that damning text. My lies crumple like wet paper. All I can manage is pathetic apologies, weak denials. He doesn't buy it. Fury explodes in his eyes, the kind of rage that makes him unrecognizable. He's ready to throw me out, maybe beat me down. Instead, he drops a chilling line. Get out. Think about how you're going to tell your wife. The drive home is a blur. I make it inside somehow, legs leaden. I can't look my wife in the eye. Guilt and shame choke me. The coward's way out is to run, disappear. But some shred of decency keeps me rooted in place. The next few days are a living hell. Sarah's furious, hissing accusations, alternating with desperate pleas for me not to leave her. My phone lighting up with unknown numbers and hang-ups makes me jumpy. Has Mark told everyone? Are strangers about to expose me? Then it comes. The email to Mark's work inbox. A single blurry photo me and Sarah locked in a kiss. No sender name, no message, just the damning proof of my betrayal. All my careful lies, my pathetic attempts at control, are useless now. The bomb has gone off, and the fallout is going to be devastating. The silence in the aftermath of Mark's fury is worse than any shouting. He doesn't even look at me, just moves like a machine packing Sarah's stuff. Her tears and pathetic attempts to defend herself fall on deaf ears. Mark's a man transformed, the good-hearted buddy replaced by this cold, merciless stranger. They're gone with a slam of the door. It echoes through my house, my soul. Mark's last words ring in my ears, the most dangerous kind. He's right. I was the snake in the grass, the one nobody saw coming. Facing my wife is the next circle of hell. How do you even start that conversation? Every time I open my mouth, pathetic excuses die on my lips. She sees through me. Finally, I choke the truth out. It spills forth, ugly and vile. The sneaking around, the lies, the photo that blew it all apart. She doesn't explode, doesn't throw things. Instead, a chilling calm settles over her. Her voice is low, words carefully chosen. You disgust me. Get out of my sight. It's not a request, it's an order. And for the first time in this whole mess, I obey without question. The kids are confused. They saw the yelling with Mark, sense something horrible is happening. I want to comfort them, explain, but there is no explanation, no fixing this. I pack a pathetic bag and leave, the coward fleeing his own wreckage. Motel rooms become my new home. The news is alight with the gossip. Apparently, Mark made no secret of it. I'm the town's new villain, Sarah the scheming seductress. My face might as well be plastered on a "most wanted" poster. Work calls, relentless at first, turn to an ominous silence. No severance, no polite email. Just termination, the professional word for a death sentence. Sarah tries to reach out, a mix of fury and some warped version of needing me. But I ignore her. There's nothing to salvage from what we had. I'm drowning, and she's just another weight pulling me down. Sleep offers no escape. Nightmares of Mark's face twisted with hatred, my wife's tear-streaked face, my kids backing away from me in fear. It's torture my guilty mind orchestrates. I bolt awake, drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. Some nights, the only way to numb the pain is to drink myself into a stupor. It doesn't bring oblivion, just makes it all worse. The world keeps spinning, heedless of my spectacular fall from grace. I'm the ghost now, haunting dingy motels, peering from behind drawn curtains at a world that wants nothing to do with me. Shame is a relentless stalker, my constant shadow. My parents find out. It's my sister who calls, voice tight with barely concealed contempt. My dad is a man of few words, but I hear the disappointment crushing down on him through the phone line. My mom, she just weeps. It's a sound that'll haunt me forever. Word gets back to me about my family. My kids refuse to visit, barely speak to me on the phone. My wife's hired a fire-breathing lawyer. Divorce proceedings are a freight train barreling towards me. It's all deserved. Nothing softens the blow. No excuses I can tell myself anymore. Then, the physical symptoms start. Chest pains in the middle of the night send me to a grimy convinced I'm having a heart attack. Turns out it's panic attacks, my body short-circuiting under the weight of guilt. The doctor scribbles a prescription, Xanax, my new crutch, to numb the constant anxiety eating me alive. Sarah's not faring any better. Word is, she's crashing at a friend's place. Mark's kicked her to the curb too. She calls sometimes, ranting, threatening, sometimes just sobbing. I want to cut her off entirely, but a twisted, pathetic part of me still clings to some warped sense of connection. We're the only ones who understand this particular kind of hell. One rainy afternoon, I see Mark. It's in the grocery store, of all places. He's gaunt, eyes shadowed, but the hatred blazing in them is as bright as ever. I try to mumble an apology, but he just turns away, disgust written on his back. We used to buy beer in this aisle, joke about football, now we're just strangers who despise each other to the very core. Back at the motel, a letter slides under the door. No stamp, just my name scrawled on it. It's from my wife. One page, words like knives. She's not talking about reconciliation, it's about obliteration. My life as I knew it doesn't just have cracks, it's been atomized. Waking up is the worst part. It's those first few seconds when reality hasn't sucker punched me yet, and then my brain catches up. The cheap motel mattress, the stale smell of booze and desperation, the crushing weight of knowing I've thrown away everything that mattered. Days bleed into each other. I drink to numb the pain, and then drink to numb the hangover. It's a vicious cycle that's dragging me under. I barely even leave the room, the outside world a terrifying stage full of accusing glares and whispered judgments. One bleary night, I decide to walk outside. Just a few blocks, maybe get some pathetic fast food to soak up the booze. It's on that grimy street corner that I see Sarah. She's thinner, a ghost of the woman who once lured me in. We stare at each other, united by our shared ruin. For a moment, the anger flares again, the urge to blame her. But looking at her, I just feel a bone-deep weariness. What's the point in more recriminations? We both played our part in this mess, both architects of our own downfall. We talk, a strained conversation on a dirty sidewalk, and then part ways without a backward glance. That night, I hit my absolute low. The Xanax and whiskey mix into a dangerous cocktail, and I wake up in a hospital bed. Overdose. Not some noble attempt at escape, just carelessness born from despair. The look in the overworked nurse's eyes mixes pity with a hint of disgust. It's the nudge I desperately need. A therapist is recommended. Some low-cost clinic, more out of pity than anything else. I hated it first. Poking around in the wreckage of my past, the screwed-up reasons why I craved the rush of the affair. It's slow, agonizing work. There are no easy answers, no instant forgiveness. Word trickles back that Mark's found someone new. Surprisingly, it doesn't stir jealousy, just a dull ache in my chest. He deserves happiness. Me? Well, that's a much harder question. A letter arrives, Mark's handwriting again. In it, he details all the practical things. Selling the house, the financial devastation I've caused him. His anger is cold, clinical, and it cuts deeper than any shouting ever could. So, here I am. Broken, alone, trying to piece together some kind of existence out of the ashes of my old life. Am I on the path to redemption? Hell if I know. Some days, just getting out of bed feels like a victory. Other days, the darkness still calls, and I'm not sure I have the strength to fight it off forever. Turns out, rock bottom has a basement level one hadn't even considered. The court finalizes my divorce. The words on the official papers are dry, devoid of emotion, yet they cut like shards of glass. A retrievable breakdown of the marriage. I become a walking, talking cliché, a cautionary tale. I lose track of how long I've been living in that crappy motel. Weeks? Months? It all blurs together. One morning, driven by desperation or maybe some flicker of self-preservation, I force myself out. Sunlight hurts my eyes, and the simple act of walking to the bus stop feels like climbing Everest. A faded poster catches my eye. Soup kitchen, volunteers needed. It's a pathetically small thing to do, but I need something beyond wallowing in guilt and cheap booze. Turns out, handing out warm meals to homeless folks is humbling in a way I never expected. Their struggles dwarf my own, yet some of them smile, genuinely smile, at me. It's like a tiny crack in the wall of misery I've built around myself. Therapy is still a slog. Talking about myself makes my skin crawl, but some days I make breakthroughs. Turns out, my dad was distant when I was a kid, and my mom, well, she put me on a pedestal that no person could ever live up to. It's not an excuse, but it's a start. Word gets back to me that my kids miss me. At least, that's what my sister tells me with a wary look. It's the first shred of hope I've felt in ages. I write letters, long, handwritten apologies that I don't even expect them to read, at least not at first. But it's a start. My parents tentatively offer a lifeline. I can move back home for a while, get a job, get back on my feet. Pride makes me hesitate, but desperation wins. Sleeping on their fold-out couch is a hell of a lot better than those motel mattresses. Turns out, Mark and Sarah are still a toxic disaster. She's apparently moved back in with him. Their fight's the talk of the town. People look at me with a strange mix of pity and revulsion as the details filter through the grapevine. I deserve every bit of it. Then, there's Emily. We meet at the soup kitchen, both painfully aware we don't belong on this side of the serving table. She's got haunted eyes, the kind that have seen too much. Turns out, her husband ran off with her best friend. We share a dark understanding, an unspoken bond in the pain we've both endured and inflicted. She doesn't judge me, and in return, I just listen. The path to fixing my life seems longer than I ever imagined. Some days I take baby steps forward, others I stumble back. But at least now, I'm walking. I'll never be who I once was. Maybe redemption is too much to hope for. But for the first time in forever, the future doesn't seem like a gaping, empty void. It's just, unknown. And for now,